Okay, you can pull that chair, you can sit there.
Yeah,
What's the corner? But can you move this camera back so that you can see both of us?
Also, they'll try to move it. I'll move it.
Okay.
They'll try. Right. Hare Krishna. Hare Hare Krishna.
Can I make it face to face?
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Krishna.
Krishna Krishna.
Hare Hare.
Hare Hare.
Hare Ram.
Hare Ram.
Hare Ram.
Hare Ram.
Ram Ram.
Ram Ram.
Hare Hare.
Hare Hare.
So there is a technical difficulty with both of us. There is a sound coming, there is a little disturbance. So let us thank His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu with three loud and enthusiastic Hari Bol.
Hari Bol. Hari Bol.
Balwant Prabhu is also here today. Thank you, Prabhu. If you want to come here and share anything, arrange. So Prabhuji is the protector of our community.
Hari Bol.
So now we're going to continue this, and I'm going to sit down and do it because it will take some time. Little format that Prabhuji said works better than just having a Q&A. So I'm very grateful that all of you have sent your questions, right, about Mahabharat. But before I get into the Q&A, I just wanted to set a pretext and just add a few lines. By hearing today's session, how many of you feel protected?
Hari Bol.
Very good. And the second PR belongs to representative. And this is how he's protecting. Prabhuji is here. Very good.
All of you are.
You can on it. I lost.
Hey,
Yes.
can you hear me? Yeah. So all of you are protecting me from unemployment. If I'm not employed by devotee, then I'm employed by my own mind. So I'm happy to be of some service.
Very good. But really, I was speaking to somebody recently, and he told an amazing thing. He said, in today's day and time, it is very difficult to find somebody who has a confidence to answer questions relating to a scripture, right? And when he came to this session, he was amazed just hearing the clarity and the clear, preciseness with which you're answering everything to. I think, we all think, if I can represent everyone here, that Prabhupada has definitely left. He was a representative, and he has definitely left amazing representative after him in form of you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hari Bol.
And the whole mission feels very protected when we see, senior devotees like your grace and many others whom we are graced with when they come here. This hall, this place is very special because this place is like Prabhupada says, like an embassy, like an oasis in a desert, where we are getting an opportunity to connect with Krishna and actually go. And these sessions, that you're taking, Prabhuji, I don't know why I thought of that idea when, actually I'm sharing with you, this Prabhuji, I think we communicated sometime in October, September, October, something like that. And Prabhuji said he's available. And obviously, are we all available? Yes, we are available. And there was one thing, how do we take advantage of Prabhuji's time? Because last time Prabhuji, you were here, you took amazing 9-session series on Gopi Gita. That was really amazing. Many of us learned a lot of things. And then I was thinking, what other series can it be? And I always have been personally, curious about Mahabharat. And a lot of times I struggle to answer some people when they ask some questions. And I felt, okay, maybe Krishna is sending Chaitanya Charan Prabhu to help me increase my faith in Mahabharat. And in the process, everybody here will also get benefited. And I'm definitely going to get more than what I have anticipated or thought. So, Prabhuji, you have literally, shooted off all the level of expectations that any of us keep, and the level at which you have taken, the entire series so far, including today's session. I mean, let me tell you, today's session was not even planned. And Prabhuji has been so busy from the time I told that this session is there. I told Prabhuji on Friday, I think on Wednesday, and then Prabhuji went to Bangalore, came back, and then whole Friday was session, Saturday was completely filled with sessions, and today also, this is the third talk he's giving since morning, and all of them are like this. So, I mean, any ordinary person would have said, this is not part of the plan, including Krishna, and I'm not including Dhritarashtra. I'm not saying Dhritarashtra was also in the battlefield indirectly. Prabhuji, can you talk about him? That's the easiest thing to talk. But adding Krishna spontaneously and then bringing such a nice explanation, Prabhuji, protect. We do this 12 session SSR series, and I think I'm thinking to add it to 13 sessions now, because this kind of completes the entire SSR. Like how after hearing signs of self-realization, how is Krishna actually in your life? How is he protected? What do you think about it? It's like essential session, and so beautifully you have put forward every little aspect. Krishna in Mahabharat, in fact, Krishna in our lives, and Krishna in so many ways. Challenges, time, empowerment, teachings, omnipotence, representatives, providence. Unbelievable, Prabhuji. It was not just some abbreviation you came up with. It was definitely directly protection from Krishna. I felt like that. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. So now, I'm very grateful that you all have put questions, into the Google Sheet. There are many questions. Firstly, I'm very grateful that you have put those questions forward. I did try to read them. Today afternoon, I read them. And so I was thinking, that we should try to focus on some questions which are actually going to raise our consciousness, right? Like if I ask a question, why is Arjuna wearing white clothes? Right? I mean, like, or what color saree did Krishna give to Draupadi? Recently I was hearing from some speaker, he said, Krishna came and when he saw the pot of Draupadi, he saw a vegetable and he ate the vegetable. What was the doubt that came to your mind? It is supposed to be rice, right? Now, whether it is vegetable or rice, how does it make a difference to our lives, right? So,
Ekadashi doesn't apply to Krishna.
Ekadashi doesn't apply to Krishna. But our questions have to be, have to elevate our consciousness. We are not here to judge characters, we are here to understand characters, right? So while I was going through those questions, I removed the questions with your kind, no permission. Which were about judging characters. Because you can keep judging character for the rest of your life and declare that he was not good enough. What does it make? It doesn't change our character. Right? So instead, I was trying to focus on questions which are going to help us build our character and help us raise our consciousness and actually benefit from somebody like Prabhuji here. Right? So please forgive me if some of your questions have not come. And also forgive me if I am not able to cover all the questions, because there were more than 60 questions in that sheet. Right? So I had to summarize some like common questions and then come up with like something like 18. How much did I come? Yeah, 19 questions. I had to just summarize them into. And few of them I could not read further because I did not have time. Sorry about it. I was like trying to do it today itself. But what we're going to do now, we'll go 5 questions and then I'll turn the mic towards all of you for the 6th question. Right? Even though you have not put in that list, you can still get an opportunity to ask your question. Right? So, yeah, you have something to say? Yeah? And then we'll try to finish as many questions as we can.
I didn't know, I have to write the name. I didn't see the message. I didn't write my question.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. Yeah, this can also happen that you have not seen the message. Right? It can happen. So, but that's not an excuse to get the mic again. But still, every 5 times, trust me and believe me, these questions are pretty good. and we will go through it now. And Prabhuji's answers may not be as detailed. Let me also tell you this, because then we won't cover many questions.
He's
Prabhuji might
telling me
give,
not to take too much time.
because Prabhuji can actually go and explain, at the most deep level, but then, there is more explanation to everything, right? So, Prabhuji will try to answer the question, but if you want more questions on that answer, right, then let us use the same sheet and add more to it, and then I will share it with Prabhuji. Or maybe we can have one more Zoom call in which Prabhuji is going to answer more questions, which are left out. Yeah, is that a good idea? Hare Krishna, Hari Bol. So let us once again thank Prabhuji for even, let me tell you, there are so many YouTube speakers. They wouldn't dare to be in this situation with these questions here. Wouldn't dare. That is the greatness of Srila Prabhupada, that he has given so much and he has encouraged us to learn so much from the right sources, that today we have the audacity or the confidence or the faith that we can actually address questions relating to such great characters in our history. So I'm actually privileged, Prabhuji, that I'm sitting here, near you, and you're my superhero since many, many years. Then all our SSR sessions are filled with your explanations, without any copyright, I believe. We are using that. And these questions and answers that you are going to hear now, I request all of you.
There is no copyright. Copy is the right.
Here is the Prabhupada doesn't have any copyright. To copy is the right. Hare Krishna. So, whatever you're going to hear now, number one, it's going to help us for sure. For sure, in some other angle it's good. Whether or not the question is yours, the question is going to get answered. Second, I request you to all to share it with others. I'm recording it separately. I stopped the previous lecture. There's a separate recording so that you can share it with your colleagues, your friends, your neighbors, enemies, friends, whatever you have, right? Go ahead and share it, because these answers are going to raise the faith that we are not following anything blindly, right? We have an answer for many things. So without any more, my, continuation of whatever you say, I'm going to get into the questions now, right? So the first question, Prabhuji, so I would like to request you to turn the camera whenever Prabhuji is speaking. First question is, you ended, actually, let me go to the last section itself of Karna. You ended the section of Karna saying that you can justify, like there are different means in which you can end the things, right? The way you do it sometimes may matter, doesn't matter. So in order to counteract the so-called looking adharmic way of killing Karna, it was in a way like, it was not on the chariot, he didn't have weapons, but Arjuna had to do. But you also said that sometimes to protect dharma, you have to take some other means, which is needed at that time. Now, how much can we devotees implement it in our lives, and how much can we stretch it, or should know how much we should stretch it? Correct. Did you all understand the question?
So, I had asked this question to Ramath Maharaj. So he was telling me an example that there's one devotee, very dynamic devotee teacher. He was working in the Indian government, and he was very upstanding and honest, and he was also doing a lot of preaching. But then he was like a campaigner against corruption. And then what happens? Sometimes there's a whole network, and then if one person doesn't take, it doesn't change the system. Okay, this is not always to support corruption. I'm just talking about so he tried to take a stand against it. And then what happened was the whole office conspired against him, and then they did various things, and then he got transferred to some distant place. So he was a very vibrant member of the community, and then he could no longer be in the community. His vigor was such that where he went, he started preaching and he built a community there also. That was his tirelessness. But the fact is that so what I was told at that time is that that it depends. Was it right thing, wrong thing? It depends. See, for each devotee, we have our own disposition, and Now, morality itself, or dharma in that sense, is important. But at the same time, Krishna also says in 1846, 47, 48, he says, Sahajam karma konteya sadosham abhijatyajit. Sarvarambhahi doshena dhumena nirvahata. That all endeavors are covered by fault. So Arjuna has to fight. Now, while fighting, he has to shoot arrows at his grandfather and his guru. That's not something he wants to do. But he says that everything that we do, even the good thing that we do in this world, will have some component that are not so good in it. So life requires us sometimes to make hard decisions. Now, hard decisions could be something could be emotionally hard, something could be ethically hard, something could be socially hard for us. So we cannot live, we cannot be utopian, expecting that everything will be ideal. So at the same time, like the example Krishna is giving is that we consider all endeavors, he's saying all endeavors, all good endeavors also, good things, they are covered by faults. Now when we say covered by faults, what that means is that we have to go beyond the covering. Actually, this is bad about this, this is bad about this, this is bad about this. So I won't do it. So we need to be able to see that, okay, there is some covering of something which is undesirable, but the substance of it is eminently desirable. So now there could be two extremes that we see only the faults. That means this is all bad, and therefore I will not do it again. No, it doesn't work. We don't live in an ideal world. When Srila Prabhupada went with great courage to America, there were people who criticized him, saying that sannyasi should not be traveling across the oceans. When Prabhupada built temples, Prabhupada started centers initially, at that time there was no following the traditional standards of architecture. Whether it should be east facing or whatever, so many things like that. There were no traditional towers and things like that on that temple. But Prabhupada said that this is how we start. And if we see only the faults and refuse to do it, and say because faults are so faulty, we don't do it at all. That will not work. Now, this is of course slightly different idea of faults. We're talking about that certain rituals are there. There's no conformity to those rituals, but the principle is the same. That in life, sometimes if we see, okay, for doing this, I'll have to do this, and therefore I don't want to get involved in this. That could be an individual disposition. That's fair enough, but that cannot be made into a universal principle. So, like say people will say, like politics is all dirty. Well, true, but then we may not be interested in politics, but politics is interested in us. Isn't it? Politics is going to affect us. So somebody has to take some initiative. Someone has to. Now the change in the system is not going to happen unless some people get into that system. When they get into that system, they cannot expect that it will change overnight. So there always we have to make some adjustments. But the other extreme is see only the faults and do nothing. No, I cannot get involved in this. And then the other extreme is that the faults are not just the covering, but the faults also become the substance. That means that it's not like there is, Krishna says there is smoke and there is fire. So you have to stoke the smoke so that you get to the fire. But there is no fire only, there is only smoke only. That means sometimes what happens is, in crossing certain lines, some ethical lines, we ourselves become corrupted. We end up becoming a part of that compromised or corrupted system. So overall, if we are doing something which is somewhat questionable, then it is to be done with great caution. Generally, Arjuna or Pandavas, whatever they did with the guidance of Krishna. So if we have to do certain things, it's good to talk with senior devotees, talk with our guides, and then we need to see that when this is being done, it is not something which I look forward to. It's not that I see this as a sign of my cleverness. That I can do this, I can game the system and get away with it. But it is something which is like a necessary evil. And ideally, it should not be there, but sometimes it may be necessary. So that's why in the Vedic context, the morality for the defining qualities for Brahmanas and Kshatriyas are also different. Brahmanas are not very much involved with the world so much. At least they're not involved in actively trying to bring about change in the world. They may give wisdom about how to change the world, but they're not involved in actually changing the world. So the qualities for Kshatriyas are slightly different. And that means that each person, according to their disposition, may have to decide that how much do I want to get involved in changing this. Is this how important is this for me? And how much do I want to get involved? So based on that, it definitely should not become like a license for routinely neglecting morality. It should not be routinely that the ends justify the means. That it's not that because my ends are good, I can do whatever I want. What is going to happen is every time that we do something which is questionable, that is going to create some impressions with us. And those impressions we'll have to deal with. Now, if our purpose, our consciousness is really pure and our purpose is to serve Krishna, then the Krishna conscious impressions will be stronger and the impressions created by those particular actions will not be that strong. But sometimes what happens is that we start doing something not because it is necessary for Krishna's service, but just because it is convenient for us. Like just taking some shortcuts because they are convenient for us. And then it becomes a habit. We start doing it even unthinkingly, and then it can become a problem. So the means. Ideally speaking, we should have good means and should have good ends. But sometimes, some means may have to be adjusted. But it has to be done very carefully, and it should generally be an exception, not the norm.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. So again, to your previous lecture, you were telling that when Karna got the Astra, the Shakti Astra, you said Krishna was very worried that he's going to use it. And you also mentioned that the Shakti Astra was capable of killing any Devata, including Lord Shiva. So that was a little bewildering because Lord Shiva, we always consider as Shambhu Tattva and he's eternal, like Lord Vishnu. So how can we understand?
Yeah, so my understanding is that there are two aspects to it. That it could be that Krishna is speaking more rhetorically. That this is such a powerful blaster that even the high beings far greater than you could be killed. There are places in the battlefield in the war where Krishna does seem to speak in a few places in non-literal ways. In the Bhagavad Gita, there are so many places that Krishna is saying that, for example, Kama, Krodha and Lobha, they are the Atmanash. They're the destroyers of the soul. The soul is never destroyed. So that's one understanding. The other is that Lord Shiva also has multiple manifestations. There is Sadashiv who exists beyond the material world at the almost, he is eternally almost existing in the spiritual world.
Can you increase your volume? Okay. Are you able to hear in the back? Yes. Everybody?
Hare Krishna. Is this better now?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So Lord Shiva, there are many manifestations of Lord Shiva. So we could say this is the material world, and this is the spiritual world. Then there is what is called as Sadashiva, who exists it's almost in the spiritual world. So he's the eternal manifestation, and those who are very purely devoted to Lord Shiva, they will go to his abode and be eternally there with him. And there they will be worshipping Lord Shiva and worshipping Lord Vishnu through Lord Shiva, with Lord Shiva. Now again, I'm not going to elaborately go to Shakti at this point. But then now at the junction of the material world and the spiritual world, we have Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh. This is the Lord Shiva as the destructive principle. Now if you see in the Bhagavatam, So this is, we have also the description that through Brahma, the Rudras are born. So when Lord Shiva when Brahma gets angry, and the Kumaras don't listen to him about procreating, then this anger manifests as the Rudras. So these are 11 Rudras. Now these, because all these are a part of the material world, they are considered non-eternal. So non-eternal means that they change. So the Rudra who is manifesting in this world, coming from Brahmaji, is a manifestation of Shiva, but that does not have that eternality Sadashiva has. So what he is referring to is one of these manifestations which is not the eternal manifestation. So the eternal Sadashiva cannot be heard by anyone. But the manifestation of the Lord Shiva in this world is something which is a part of the cosmic administration. And that is a non-eternal position.
Can we say that just an extension of the same? Can we say that like certain avatars of Lord Vishnu also, like Parashurama or few others who actually came and they also left, but can they be understood as not eternal but at the same time, or is it a different complete
Well,
understanding?
I'm not sure whether you will equate those because in general the word avatar is used. See, there's the incarnation and there's manifestation. So the words are not exactly the same. Generally, the idea of the avatar is that this is the spiritual world, and there is the being who is existing in the spiritual world. From there, they transit and come to this world. So when they go, it is not that their existence is ending. They are appearing in this world, staying for some time, and going back. Now, Lord Shiva is eternal, so Sadashiva is eternal. But I have not heard about the Rudras themselves being eternal. Now, we could say they are expansions, and those expansions are no longer manifested. But the original being from which they are expanding, that is eternal. In that sense, there is some similarity. But it is like, say, Krishna expanded as thousands of expansions in the last to dance with each other movies. Then we are
When got the motion.
It's very polite way of phrasing my distraction. So, where is it? Here? Can you use my walking stick to get the
He's getting it.
sorry. What's happening? I got it. Something else. So now it's like there's no description that say all the expansions of Krishna were there in Rasdila. It's not that they were destroyed. It's not like somebody shot arrows and destroyed them, the expansions of Krishna. So those expansions, they are manifested, they are manifested. So I think Lord Rudra maybe something like that. That is non-eternal.
Hare Krishna. Anyway, try to stick to Mahabharat more. This question of tattva can go a lot more. So culture and values probably have changed over 5,000 years. Is a long time. What was supposed to be a normal thing in those days can be completely abnormal today, even by the mere discussion of it. So when you talk about characters like Karna, Arjuna, and Dronacharya, such respectable characters like Bhishma, and then you see us, I see myself in today's day and time, when the culture and values are completely changed. So hearing to these aspects of their values and their decisions in those times, how do we relate it to us today? How do we really apply it to our lives, for what they have done then, when the whole ecosystem has changed?
Yes. I also thought quite a bit about it. See, my understanding is that what all can change in the arenas. Arenas means like the cultural context you're saying. That can change substantially. Then the abilities themselves can change. The people over there could change their forms. They could have celestial weapons. The places The ambience in which they are working has changed. The abilities they have changed. Then, to some extent, the attitudes have also changed. That's what you are referring to in this sense. Say there could be attitude towards elders, there could be gender roles. I was once in America, I was giving a class. I told about how Yudhishthir was very respectful to his elders, and that's why the Dhritarashtra called him through Vidura. And that's how he came and played the gambling match. So then after that, I was talking with various participants, and there was one young boy who was there. We were around 11, 12. So I asked him, what did you learn from that class? He said, it's very dangerous to obey our elders. No, that is not the lesson they learned. But is that blind obedience to elders is not right, but it's not that there's no obedience to elders. So the thing is that arenas, abilities, attitudes, these have changed. But two things don't change. One is the principle that choices have consequences. That they make some choices and those choices have consequences. And we also have to make choices and our choices will have consequences. And the other principle is that our powers that are always lesser than our situations. That means we all are limited. So now the limitation for Bhishma, for Karna might have been different. And for us it might be different. So the idea is when we have limitations and within those limitations we make some choices. So how do we make good choices? The key focus in if we consider the key focus in the Mahabharat is not that, Arjuna could shoot arrows even at night in the dark. That is the extraordinary ability he had. But that's not the key tension or the key deliberation in the Mahabharat. So the idea that we all operate in constraining circumstances. That everybody has some constraints in which they operate. And while operating within those constrained circumstances, our choices have consequences. So how do we deal with those? What can we learn about making good decisions? What can we learn about how to operate within constrained choices and still make good decisions? So I think that is, so this is going to be changing. That abilities, arenas, attitudes may change, but the principle that we have to make choices and we are limited in making choices and we have to make decisions within those choices. That principle is eternal. So sometimes I see sometimes some people do classes and they focus on how many soldiers within how much Akshubudi is and how giant was the Ghatotkaч and how was this. So dimensions can be entertaining in some points, but they are not so relevant for us. But this principle, like when we're discussing, when we talk about say Karna, the fact that Karna had extraordinary archery ability, that is there. But the decisions that he made, say the first decision was about choosing to be support with tourism side, then acting to dishonor Draupadi. But those kind of situations are very relatable for us. So in that sense, it's like, and this controls the long answer, but I just make this point that in every, there is this thing called the ladder of abstraction. Ladder of abstraction means what? That this is a principle in literature, and there is something similar in Nyaya also. Forget the name. That at the bottom of this ladder are specifics. So for example, 1,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, there are certain specifics which are given in the Mahabharat. Now, at the top of this ladder are principles. And then at the bottom are the specifics for us today. So when we have to understand scripture, in one sense, what the acharyas help us to do is we go from the specifics to the universal, and then we come back to specifics for us today. So, for example, in the seventh canto, Prabhupada says when Prahlad is saying that my different senses are being pulled by different sense objects. The ears are being captivated by attractive mundane songs. So Prabhupada writes there, the ears are attracted by radio songs. Now there are no radio songs in Prahlad's time. But what Prabhupada is doing is, he's actually taking the specific at that time, and he's going down to the universal and coming back to the specific at our time. So sometimes we have to consciously do this. Say, Krishna says, fight. Now, Mom, remember me and fight. So that remember me and fight for Arjuna specific. For Arjuna, he had to fight specifically. Now, for us, it may not be fight. It is the universal principle is do Krishna's will. And for us, doing Krishna's will, maybe we distribute books, we do Rath Yatras, we share Krishna by giving classes, whatever it is. That is fightful. So basically, that's how is it relevant? That is what we have to learn from the acharyas.
Hare Krishna.
One.
We get the answer. So one of the things is when Lord Krishna appears, in different avatars, he just does the job himself. Like when it comes to Nrsimhadev, or when it comes to Varahadev, Matsya avatar, or any avatar, even Lord Ram, he just went and killed, finished the game. Like but when it comes to Lord Krishna, why did he even make the choice that I am not going to fight? In Mahabharat, I am not going to raise the weapons. Why did he do that? Why is he asking Pandavas to do it for him? What was the main understanding in here of it?
I have pondered this quite a bit, and I have asked different senior devotees also. The three different points I've got. That if you see in the Bhagavatam, it is Krishna who does much of the dealing with the demons himself. But in the Mahabharat, the driving question of the book is, what is dharma? What is the right thing to do? Now, the lesson cannot be the right thing to do is let God do all the right things. So, it is in one sense a very human-centered book. It is a human dilemma. In the Ramayana, the driving question is that who is the ideal person? What is the ideal behavior? So there, the focus is on Lord Ram. There also Lord Ram takes the help of Hanuman, the Vanara that is there. But because the Mahabharat's question is, what is dharma? Then it is a human being who has to do dharma. The human being who has to face challenges. So in that sense, God is there, but to answer the question of dharma, it is the human dilemma that is at the center of the book. That's one aspect to it. The second aspect is that Krishna's whole mood in the Gita and overall in the Mahabharata is that while there are exceptional situations when Krishna acts, like at the end of the Gita, it says Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Partho Nurudara, Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhuti Dhruvaniti Matiru. Now we could say that Shri is Lakshmi Devi. So where there is Krishna, where there is Narayana, there is Lakshmi. It's already there. So what is the need to mention Arjuna over there? Where there is Krishna, there is victory. We could have said that. But the point is that the purpose of the Gita is not just to proclaim God's position. The purpose of the Gita is to transform man's disposition. So it is to inspire the human being to become an instrument. So it is more for us humans to take responsibility. And because that is the mood of the Gita, that is also the broader mood of the Bhagavad. So Krishna is guiding us to take responsibility. And the third thing is, so first it's a deliberation of dharma. Second is, it is to guide us to take responsibility. How is it? So, He tells us what is dharma, then it is a guide for us to take responsibility, that we should take responsibility to Krishna's will. And the last is that in many ways it is a preparation for Kali Yuga. How by preparation for Kali Yuga? See, one of the characteristics of Kali Yuga is that the evidences of higher realities start becoming less and less apparent. The Amrit Maharaj gives an example, very clever example. I don't found in Shastra, but I like it very much. He says that just like when there's a pandemic, there was a certain area like a red zone area, so it's quarantine. Nobody can come in, nobody can go out. So like that, Kali Yuga, the earth is quarantined from the rest of the universe. That's why in the past, people would perform yajna, that the devatas would be seen, the sages would come. So if you see the Ramayana and Mahabharat, the interaction between the celestial and the terrestrial realms is quite frequent. But now, Kali Yuga is contaminated. Kali Yuga is only on earth, it is not in heaven. So they don't want to get contaminated by Kali. So that's why so the point is that in Kali Yuga, we won't see so many direct divine interventions. And that's why it's more important for us to take responsibility. So if we don't do that, then we will feel that there's no, that things will keep going wrong. So for us, so that's my understanding of the reasons.
Right. So now one question from the audience. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Prabhuji, one fundamental question. Generally, there is a misunderstanding that Mahabharat is like a concocted story or novel. But apart from that, there is one shloka, Stri Vaishya Dijabandhuna, Trayena Tujuroja. In that shloka, he is saying that this is written for the benefit of Stri Vaishya Shudra Dijabandhuna. So it's a happens instant, historical event happened. So how can we understand that he has written Mahabharata for the benefit of them?
It's a good question. See, first of all, there are incidents that can have happened. But then when the narration of the incidents happens, then how is that narration done? There is a particular purpose for giving that narration. Say for example now, in India, when we talk about Indian history, now we talk about how the British had colonized us and Indians fought for independence and we got independence. Now, I was in UK and I was one of the devotees showed me their history textbook over there. So there, at least till a few years before, now there is some amount of change, but their idea was actually they did great good to India. The Indians were so primitive, Indians had no material technology, and there's the Rudyard Kipling was author, he said, it is actually the white man's burden to civilize the rest of humanity. Yeah. And in their history books, they say, we developed the railway system, we did this, we did that, and it's we who brought India out of the dark ages. So it's like, from our perspective, India was so prosperous before the British came. Because of them, we went into the dark ages, you can say. But the point is, history is written from a particular perspective. Now, did colonization have some good effects? Yeah, definitely. It is not that. It's complete brutality was there. At least overt brutality was not there. So, but there are a lot of bad things that happen to colonizations. The thing is, when history is written, we can always write it from a particular perspective. What is it that we focus on? So like just now when we had this session, we could discuss the Mahabharat, but there are so many things to discuss in the Mahabharat. Our focus in this session was on discussing how Krishna protects. So an author can narrate a particular story, but they can narrate it from a particular perspective. So there will be a particular thread of thought that will underlie. So the way things work, so the Mahabharata is indeed incidents that have happened. But when when Vyasadeva chooses to write them down, he does not, if you consider three things. First is the Sanskrit that he uses. It is fairly simple Sanskrit. It is not like the Upanishadic Sanskrit. It's Upanishadic Sanskrit is very complex. Like if we know a little bit of the Sanskrit also, we can read the Mahabharata and most of it we can make sense. So there are not many, like the Upanishadic verses can be interpreted in many different ways. The Mahabharata shlokas, most of them are very difficult to misinterpret. The straightforward description of a narrative. So the Sanskrit itself is very simple. The second is that there is a lot of focus on narrative, on action. There's drama and intrigue and violence and romance and wars and all those things. And it's very different from the Upanishads. So those Upanishads are very serious philosophical texts. So the idea is that there are some people who may want to get into deep intellectual analysis of philosophy. But for others, there are more principles of living that are being taught. So the Mahabharata, it definitely has some philosophy in it. But the philosophy also it's not focused so much on philosophy per se. The focus is on, okay, when Yudhishthira goes to the forest, Yudhishthira asks the sages, what has happened to me? How do I make sense of it? Then there's the story of Nal Damayanti that is told. And then some lessons are drawn. So overall, the focus is not so much on deep philosophy. The focus is more on life lessons to guide us for living. Upanishad is also like that only, ultimately. There's a lot of philosophy. That's the second thing. And the third thing is that, so Sanskrit is simple. The focus is on stories with lessons from stories. And the third is that it is, while the question is about dharma, and dharma is quite complex, the Mahabharat's ethical dimension is complicated, no doubt. But overall, its storyline is quite entertaining. Remember in the first section I talked about 4 levels: literal, ethical, allegorical, and devotional, LEAD. So at the literal level, it's a very gripping story. Now once somebody gets to the ethical level, then one has to do a lot of deliberation. So it's an incident that happened, but it has been narrated from a particular perspective to reach to a large mass of people. Okay? Does that answer the question?
Right. Okay, one little lighter, straight question. How can Duryodhana be so bad? Doesn't he have even one good quality in him?
Once I was invited to one leftist college. Life lessons. There is like life lessons. They want some wisdom from Mahabharata. And they said, don't tell the usual morality deaths. Morality deaths is, this is good, this is bad. So at that time I said, I tell you leadership lessons from Duryodhana. So actually, there are definitely he had good qualities. How many of you have younger siblings? How many of you can get your younger siblings to obey you? It's not easy, isn't it? So he got everyone to obey. It could have been out of fear, but how much fear can he have? And how much can fear hold everyone for long throughout? So he got his younger people to his siblings to obey him. And he was in many ways good at optics. When the time came for him to inherit the kingdom, he built palaces for everyone. And the way he portrayed it is that I want the kingdom so that all of you can enjoy. And thus, he actually made the palace of Dushasan bigger and better than his own palace. And when Krishna came, he offered Krishna residence in Dushasan's palace. So he was good at optics. Like even with Karna also, what did he say? Optics means, acting optics is visuals. Like creating an image. The politicians should have substance, but along with substance, they also need to be able to create an image. In the past, the politicians speech writer was the biggest assistant, most important assistant. But nowadays it's more like the brand manager or the image manager. What is the PR? So the word for it. Public, no, not public, something like that. But basically, the image becomes very important. So he was very good at understanding how he could create a good image. So with Karna also, he told me, what do I want? With Karna, I want your friendship. So he was good at that also. Now, the third thing was that, now you could say these are bad qualities also, but it's not exactly, being able to create a good image is also important. Like the image is without substance, that's a problem. But then also, he was good at telling his side of the story in such a way that people would believe this side of the story is only the right side. So that's how it's like when the Pandavas were in the forest. How was it that Duryodhana was able to get 11 Akshamunis to support him? That there's so many bad people who can support him. No, it is that what happens is that the Pandavas were in the forest, and in one sense they were out of society basically. And Duryodhana started telling his side of the story. Now his side of the story might be a distorted side or whatever, but he kept telling his side of the story, and that's what people started believing. So, what was his side of the story? He, rather than saying that that I tricked Yudhishthira into gambling, he said Yudhishthira is such an irresponsible person that he gambled away all his wealth. He gambled away his brothers. He gambled away his wife. Do you think such a person is worthy of being a king? What a way to twist it, isn't it? So he was good at twisting things, telling his own side of the story, and that's how he got people to come on his side. And in many ways, this is what has happened to Hinduism in the broader world. See, Hindus have been very successful in the broader world. Like the Jews and the Hindus are probably among the demographics who are the most successful. But the Jews have put in a lot of effort to tell their side of the story. But the what has happened is Hindus have often succeeded in fields of individual excellence, but not in fields of social influence. Individual excellence is you become a doctor, you become an engineer. These are fields that we excel individually. But in the media, in politics, in the entertainment industry, like there's not so many Indians are there. Especially I'm talking about the Western world and increasingly India also. So what has happened is the Hindu side of the story, there's hardly anyone to tell that side of the story. When I was in America, this is a little divergent over here. But the point I'm making is that how important is it to tell our side of the story? I was in America, there were many devotees. They asked me, what is happening in India? He said that a mosque was destroyed and a temple was built over there. And the whole country is celebrating. The Prime Minister of the country is going to celebrate a temple that was built by destroying a mosque. This is not fanaticism, this is not religious intolerance, what is it? I told you that, but the mosque was built by destroying the temple. So their argument is, in the past, medieval ages, so many things happened. If we start correcting the historical wrongs, how far are they going to go with that? Now, you see, in the West, they have this idea that blacks were enslaved and then they have to be corrected. So there's an attempt to, there's diversity quotas and there's reparations. So the idea of correcting historical wrongs is there. But here, it's not dismissed this way. Another point I told them is that it's not that the mosque was destroyed, it was more that the Indian government, the court itself, paid and allotted a land where the mosque could be rebuilt. And the plan was that you can build the mosque and the temple and both can be inaugurated the same day. But what happened is, the Muslims, they wanted to make the mosque initially the biggest mosque in the whole world. And they wanted funds for that, they didn't get that much funds. Then they said, now they think we will make the biggest mosque in the country. And they have been given place for that. Nobody is destroying their mosques. And also that in Ayodhya itself, in that area itself, there are 6 mosques. And even at the peak of the agitation for the temple, none of those mosques were damaged. So it is not a destruction of mosques in general. It is just one particular place which has immense historical value for one tradition. There's no historical significance for the other tradition. So then that place has been reclaimed. So the point is that now this narrative in the Western media, nobody is telling that. And then what happens is crafting narratives is very important. So Duryodhana was good at that. So now of course he used these qualities for a bad purpose. But that is, he did have good qualities.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. The other day when you were giving session on how Drona was killed, you mentioned after Drishtadyumna, he killed and he started almost attacking, like, these people don't deserve to. The Pandavas, how could Pandavas do this? How could Pandavas who are representing Dharma behave in such a way? Of course, he didn't know that it was not Pandavas, it was only Drishtadyumna's anger that made it happen. A spontaneous thing that happened at that time. He didn't know that fact, neither did he try to know. But what the question is, Prabhuji, now he himself has done adharmic act of killing Abhimanyu, right? In a most brutal way. He was standing there, son of, grandson of Bharadwaj Rishi, or son of Drona, so much honored, specially empowered, have a money on his head, right? So much knowledge. And he went ahead and killed, was part of killing Abhimanyu. And he was supporting a adharmic person like Duryodhana. So he is adharmic, right? But when it comes to, when you see somebody like Pandavas does even one thing, on the other side, the reaction is so much. Now I'm just going to add this question with the current situation also, bro. Sometimes, when we devotees, we try to preach and we get objection or some kind of, whatever, secular people, they come for, oh, why are you only preaching this? Why not that? Why not this? We keep answering them. But a time comes when you have to put the, say, done is done. And then we raise our voice. Sometimes we have to raise our voice, saying, you know what, you have a problem, you do this, I'm going to do this. And immediately the reaction comes, see, he was trying to project like a sadhu, but he's trying to behave like, see, this is his true nature. That I don't know how many of you experience that, but I've experienced it many times, right? Maybe it's my nature that's coming out. That's okay. But the point is, how do you justify people, or how do you answer people when they put such marks on us when we go one step ahead to do the right thing, and they say you're adharmic, but they themselves are adharmic in many ways.
Yeah. See, there are two different things over here. That somehow in the Kaurava mindset, whatever I have read, that Abhimanyu's killing was a terrible thing. Nobody seems to acknowledge that. It's that nobody expresses any regret for the way he was killed. Now, even Drona, he says, he knew that this is my army and I had to protect my army, whatever it takes. So it is certainly a terrible act. But then, the way it is portrayed is that the Pandavas started it. They killed Bhishma in a questionable way, and therefore we can kill kill their side also in a questionable way. What is the justification? But it's Bhishma himself told this is how you can kill. It's not the case, and there also it is not multiple warriors here attacked Abhimanyu. So it was different. It was definitely in degree it was far worse. But in general, it is a human tendency to downplay the wrongs done by us and to highlight the wrongs done to us. That's just the way the mind works. That whenever we make some mistake, and then when we give some reasons, when we give reasons, that's an explanation. When somebody else gives a reason, that's an excuse. That's how the mind works. So I think Ashwatthama also succumbed to that particular kind of reasoning only. And as far as our our situation is concerned, one difference is that we are trying to teach something. Naturally, we will be held to a higher moral standard because we are trying to teach some values, and then people will ask, are you yourself living according to those values? So in that sense, it's there, but we also have to be. We don't have to put ourselves in a high moral pedestal. That that you are ignorant and I'm enlightened and I'm going to enlighten you. It's more that we are all on the journey towards improvement. And I have learned some values, I have learned some insights, and I want to share them with you. I'm also on this path, and this has improved the quality of my life. That's why I'm sharing with you, and this will also improve the quality of your life. So generally, if we have that attitude, I don't think people will be too judgmental about it. If people are judgmental, then it's best to keep a distance from them. And sometimes some negative perceptions are just unavoidable because we ourselves are finite beings and fallible beings. But to whatever extent is possible, we try to minimize it. So there is that incident where one professor he wrote a letter to Prabhupada saying that your disciples like this, your disciples like this, your disciples like this. Now Prabhupada defends his disciples and he says that yeah, they may have faults, but they have dedicated their life to serving Krishna. And that is never a fault. It comes in signs of self-realization. But then Prabhupada also says that he wants his disciples to be like perfect gentlemen and ladies. He wants us to also behave properly. So I think both ways are there.
Thank you, Prabhu. Prabhu, when it comes to the entire Mahabharat, we read so many glories about Pandavas and how Arjuna represented Lord Krishna, followed it, won the war, everything good. But the final exit of Pandavas is such a controversy, especially in this part of the country. There is one superhero, he made a movie. He made many movies on Mahabharat, and he played a role of Karna also and glorified himself as better than Pandavas. He played a role of anybody, Duryodhana also, and he played and he glorified. I mean, he did so much damage, right? And the damage is still not recovered, even after he died, like, I don't know, 30 years back. But still now people have this conception that, Pandavas also did many wrongs, so they went to hell. They started walking to Himalayas, one by one started falling, and they all met each other in hell. And I mean, even I hesitate to tell what it spoke about Draupadi, right? It was horrible. Like, she had attraction on Karna. That is the reason she went to hell herself. Some desire. Now, nobody has corrected these impressions. And two questions for you. One, is it even their imagination of some producer or director? And if even some part of it is true, how do we understand this? Right.
Yeah. So it is described in the Mahabharata, the departure of the Pandavas. They renounce the world and they start going toward the heaven. And as they're going toward the heaven, they all fall one by one. And there are different reasons given for each of them why they fall. And when Draupadi falls, by the way, it is said that although she had 5 husbands, she had special affection for Arjuna. And that sense she was partial in her love for Arjuna. That is not exactly partial. Arjuna was the person who won her hand in the Swayamvar. And that's whom she gave her heart. The others she married was obligation, she was faithful to them. But the point of the Mahabharata is that towards the end, the dharma is gahana, dharma is very difficult to know. So the idea is that even good people will have some faults. And those faults will have some consequences. But when it is said that they went to hell, it is just for a few moments. And the idea is that if you have done something negative, there will be some suffering for that. But it is not permanent, it is not long lasting, it is just very short. Now, as far as this whole idea of Draupadi having some feelings for Karna, that is a complete concoction. That is like I was reading the Karna story that how we don't just see characters, we see characters and how they relate with us. So in India there is a prominent this caste discrimination narrative, and within that Karna appears to be like a hero who was being discriminated against all the time. So he's in that sense become quite a champion for some people who want to propagate this anti-caste narrative. So if we see the interactions between Draupadi and Karna, wherever those interactions do happen. Now, as far as I remember, significant interactions are in her Swayamvar. In her Swayamvar, either she says no to Karna or Drishti says no, that he cannot participate. But so there is no indication that over there she developed any attraction. Then after that, what happened is they mostly lived separately. Like, Karna was with the Pandavas, was with Duryodhana, and the Pandavas they were sent to Indraprastha, Khandapastha, where they made it with Indraprastha. So where was there any interaction? Where was there any place where Karna displayed any extraordinary valor, because of which Draupadi might feel that I want him or he is better than my husband or anything like that. And like we discussed earlier, Karna was never better than Arjuna in any of the attributes. And then if we consider it was Karna who suggested that Draupadi be dragged to the assembly and be disrobed. It is that would lead. Even if somebody has some feelings, those will be completely destroyed if somebody tries to abuse like that. So it's completely absurd. The whole idea that there's any kind of relationship or even attraction between the two. So this idea is propagated just to make it seem as if Karna was greater than the Pandavas, and so great that even Draupadi was attracted to herself. So it was almost like Draupadi becomes a puppet in the hands of this historical retellers or concoctors to try to glorify Karna. It is absolutely, if you look at the Mahabharat and the incidents, there's absolutely no interaction of any significance nor any reason for her to find Karna attractive.
Thank you. Prabhuji, speaking about Vidura, again, Dharmaraj representing, they say that Swayam Yamaraj, he appeared as Vidura. Now there is Bhishma, there is Drona, there is Vidura, so many people in the assembly, and Bhishma and Drona, for n number of reasons, they were still supporting the Kauravas. But Vidura always fought against, their. So why he also didn't support? What was the bending factor that Vidura had extra that he could not support the actions of Dhritarashtra? Or rather, even sorry to correct myself, but Bhishma also never supported the actions of Dhritarashtra. But then he still, went ahead doing it. Yeah. But Vidura objected it till the last.
Yes. So the Bhishma was bound by his vow, and now Drona felt bound by the facilities that he had been given. There's the story that Drona was quite poor, and he was given an entire Gurukul to lead and to take care of. So that's how he felt obligated to them. But as far as Vidura was concerned, while he was born in royalty, he was not attached to royal comforts. It does. He did not feel that he was, if there was any bond that was primarily out of affection, out of concern. And out of that concern, he could speak strongly to Dhritarashtra. And then finally, when he saw that Dhritarashtra is just not ready to listen to me, he's not ready to stop Duryodhana, then he walked away from there. So, Vidura was not bound by either vow or by. Now, did he have affection or vow or any kind of facilities that he had got to which he was attached? So, did he have affection? Yes, he definitely had affection, and that's why he came back afterwards to enlighten the Dhritarashtra and elevate him afterwards.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, talking about, again.
So one more point about Vidura.
Yeah.
It said that Vibhishan, he went on the Ram side, but Vidura did not go on the Pandava side. And that is one the main reason for that is that Vidura felt that Dhritarashtra is still redeemable. Dhritarashtra is not a bad person, but he's very attached to a bad person, that is Duryodhana. So if Vidura had been a part of those who had caused the death of Duryodhana, then that would have antagonized Dhritarashtra so much that Dhritarashtra would not be able to hear from such a person. So therefore, Vidura went on a pilgrimage. And when he came back and Dhritarashtra was now, in one sense, free from Duryodhana's shackles, then he became ready to hear. So that's why while he left, he did not join the Pandavas, because he still wanted to eventually deliver Dhritarashtra.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Guruji, the most dear people normally, if you ask a married person, children, the first thing that most affecting part is children. Like a parents, they're like very concerned about their children's well-being. If children are happy, if their children are happy, they become happy. If the children are not happy, no matter how much wealth they have, they're not happy. I'm giving this pretext in the sense that when Krishna says, Kaunteya pratijanihi navai bhakta pranishyate, he is protecting his devotees, no doubt. But what about Upapandavas? What about Abhimanyu? How did Krishna allow that to happen? When he knows that, Pandavas obviously love their children. And practically at the end of the war, you say it is Dharma Kshetra, Kurukshetra, war of Dharma. Nobody is left but for one, fetus in the womb, who becomes the king, next king. It sounds so depressive on the facet of it that Krishna was protecting, but what kind of protection is this? Of course, you did answer before, but if you can show some light on it.
There are two different ways of looking at it. One is that in this world, bad things happen to good people. And it's that for the cause of Dharma, for the cause of Krishna, even good people have to sacrifice. And that is the glorification of the Pandavas, that they were ready to sacrifice all this for Krishna's sake. So while Krishna did help in many ways the Pandavas, but still there was a price to be paid, and the price was quite heavy. Now so from Krishna's perspective, the epics, they do depict devotional truths, but that does not mean that they don't depict the harsh realities of this world. Like the Ishopinian said, Vidyam cha yastad vedo vayamsa. The nature of Krishna's love and the nature of the material world. Both are depicted. So the nature of Krishna's love and Krishna's protection, sometimes it is seen at the level where we can perceive, but sometimes it is not seen. And the scriptures would not be giving us the scriptures, they contain only examples of Krishna protecting everyone and there being no casualties. Then they would not be giving a real picture of the world. And then what would happen is that our lived experience and scriptural narratives, they would be so completely different that the scriptural narrative will be just rejected as impractical. Okay, the Krishna protects at that time, but now it doesn't protect. So therefore the stories have nothing to do. So these narratives do depict that the service of the Lord does sometimes require severe prices to be paid. And the greatness of the devotees that they pay those prices. So, Srila Prabhupada, 30-40 years, in the old age, he was able to succeed. Before that, he was not able to succeed at all. So, we could say that it is Prabhupada Krishna's glory that Krishna showed that in the last 10 years, Prabhupada was able to do so much. But we could always say that if Prabhupada had got success at the age of 30 or 40 or 50, Prabhupada could have done so much more. And so ultimately what Bhishma says to Yudhishthira, that we can't do what Krishna's plan is. So Krishna protects, but whom he protects, how he protects, when he protects, ultimately that is his prerogative.
Prabhuji, one of the incidents in Mahabharat which really shakens the faith many times is that incident where Draupadi gets married to Arjuna, they come back to the house, and without seeing, Kunti says, he says, I got arms, I got some, food from outside. And she says, okay, you brothers divide it among yourselves. Not just a statement, right? I mean, like, not a perfect compare, but when I look at Bhishma making that statement to his father that, I will not be the king, I will see your lineage as a king. And we say that how could he make such a statement without looking into the future? And we also tell Bhishma that he did not, there is one way of seeing that he did all that for the pleasure of Krishna, but actually, he should not have done something like that. And we speak so many lectures on that. But what about this incident where Mother Kunti is just making a statement without even looking at the person? She didn't even look what happened behind her. And it is taken so seriously. I don't know how much it is true, but even Lord Krishna appears there and says, I think you have to follow what she told. And the most, lack of words, the weirdest, relationship tussle happens there where one lady has 5 husbands. And it is so difficult to explain, many things around that relationship. Why did that even be allowed? And just a statement of Kunti.
Yeah. See, the fact is, it's certainly an extraordinary situation. And when it happens, it's not just because of her statement. It's her statement is something which makes them think. Because when Arjuna wins Draupadi's hand, he comes back. It's not that is the plan. And when Yudhishthira says this, Yudhishthira hears this and Yudhishthira says, Kunti has said this. And then what do we do about it? So then they go back to Drupada's kingdom, and there Vyasadeva also comes. And then Vyasadeva tells the story from a previous life, where it is said that Draupadi had, in a previous life, prayed to Lord Shiva, and she had asked, she was very desperate to have a husband. And when Lord Shiva appeared, it is said that she prayed to Lord Shiva, that I want a husband, I want a husband. I want a husband, I want a husband, I want a husband. So she said 5 times, Lord Shiva said, you will have 5 husbands. Now, this may sound a bit humorous, but the point is that it's not just Kunti's statement. Kunti's statement is one factor, but there is Vyasadeva's explanation that there's something bigger going on. And that is, there is an arrangement with the blessing of Lord Shiva for this particular thing to happen. And then beyond that, it is not unprecedented, it is rare. At that time also, what they do is the deliberation in the Bhagavatam. There's a story of, what is it in the Prachetas? The Prachetas have one wife. So it's much more, okay? So 100 Prachetas have one wife. So actually in the Mahabharat that story is quoted. And while it is rare, it is not unprecedented. So there are many factors involved. Kunti's words, so we could say, rather than saying Kunti's words are the cause, rather there is a higher cause because of which Kunti speaks those words. And there is a higher arrangement because of some previous life factors, and Kunti is inspired at that time to speak those words.
Yes, Prabhuji, but again, it was just a statement. It was not like Kunti was trying to, Kunti had a plan or something, or she could see the future or something. It was just a statement that, just divide among yourself, without even knowing that she is a human. But you're saying, Vyasadeva came.
But it could be just a statement, but is that statement the sole cause, or is that statement an instrument for some cause from something beyond? So that's something to be considered over there.
So you're saying basically the word of an Acharya, like Vyasadeva coming and explaining.
Yeah, and that was a key factor. Drupada was not at all ready for that. The Pandavas may consider Kunti to be an authority, but Drupada is not going to consider Kunti to be an authority. That's it. So Drupada, when Vyasadeva spoke, that's when Drupada agreed.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Hari Bol. Would any of us even think of getting answers for questions like this? Right? So many of us have so many questions, but we are so fortunate that we are able to hear an answer that we can also tell others. First of all, increases our faith in ourselves for what we are, what our history was, and then we can give answers. So really, it's amazing time that you're giving to us, Prabhuji, an opportunity to get these answers. So one more question on Ashwatthama. Now you said Dronacharya, he decided to side with the Kauravas because of the facilities he was given. That itself is bewildering. Bharadwaja's son, supposed to be so known, praised, that he ultimately fell. If not a straight line like that, you can explain why more than that. But because facilities are given, he is going to support whatever the king does and make himself binded there. More bewildering than him is how did he allow his son Ashwatthama, after all, if he is his son with so many good qualities, how did he allow him to work with, side with Kauravas? What was the need? What he could have told his son, hey, what are you doing? Pandavas, Arjuna is my best Shishya. Yudhishthira is the best person who knows Dharma. Why don't you be with them? Why he didn't, or at least we don't know that he has.
See, Drona, like many of the characters in the Mahabharat, is a complex character. And see, in those situations, when the final war came, Drona was also among the people who tried to give advice to the Duryodhana. Don't fight against the Pandavas. Try to settle things peacefully. But Duryodhana was not ready to listen to anyone. And Drona and Ashwatthama had a very strong bond. If Drona was going to fight on one side, Ashwatthama would not have been able to conceive fighting on the opposite side. Ashwatthama could not have thought of shooting arrows at Drona. That would have been inconceivable for him. So I think because Drona chose that, Ashwatthama also chose that. Ashwatthama did not really have any animosity toward the Pandavas. And in fact, at one particular point in the Mahabharat war, Ashwatthama actually goes to Duryodhana and says, stop this war. Enough is enough. You have lost enough now. There's practically no chance for you to win. Better that you appeal to Yudhishthira, talk with him, and Yudhishthira settle for peace right now. You will still have half of your kingdom. But Duryodhana says that if I was going to settle for half the kingdom, then why did I fight all this war? So it is the same logic that Ravan gives. When Mandodari and others come and tell him, stop this fight now. Everything will be destroyed. He says that all those who died for my cause, what face will I show them if I now settle for peace? So it's like he is worried about what face he will show to others in the next life. He is not concerned about the plight of people in this life, those who are going to kill. But Duryodhana also, that logic is there. So I think it was more of the father-son bond was very strong. When the father chose to be there, Ashwatthama also went on the same side.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. You have a question? Yeah, let's take one audience question.
Continuation to same
Yeah,
question.
we can take the mic.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, please don't Prana. I just want to ask a question about Ashwatthama's. After Ashwatthama kills Pandavas, Krishna, Arjuna, everybody wanted to, in permission, they unanimously say kill him. But Draupadi is the one who comes and says, no, don't kill him. And gives the explanation that, I know the pain of mother. I want to understand, Guruji, at that time, why Krishna made it happen. Because Krishna is the ultimate, to say punishment. And then leave him alone. What was the reason for that? And second thing, they say, Ashwatthama is still alive and he's roaming around in Himalaya. Say that.
So now Krishna, in one sense, is training Arjuna to take decisions. Although Krishna is with Arjuna, Krishna does not take the decision for Arjuna. See, the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna that you surrender to me, to do my will. But ultimately, sometimes people say that Arjuna had Krishna with him. That's how we could follow. How can we follow Krishna? But we see that even when Krishna was with Arjuna, Krishna was constantly guiding Arjuna. So the idea is, even when Krishna was with Arjuna, Krishna was preparing Arjuna to take decisions that he would not be with him. So my understanding is that the narrative starts from the 7th chapter in the Bhagavatam, where Krishna and Ashwatthama are there, Krishna and Arjuna are chasing Ashwatthama. So why does it start from that particular? It seems to be a very sudden way to start the whole narrative. So now one reason is that it is describing the birth of Parikshit Maharaj. Then in the first canto, 7th chapter, in a few verses, it is described how Shukdev Goswami became enlightened and ready to speak the Bhagavatam. And then from chapter 7 till chapter 19 is the backstory of the character who would become ready to hear the Bhagavatam. So it starts from there. That is, this was a person who was so extraordinary that when he was in the womb, at that time the Lord personally came to protect him. Then, if that fatal weapon, this was also a Brahmana had sent an astra. At that time the Lord protected him. Then after that, Ashwatthama was a Brahmana, and another Brahmana, Shringi, cursed a weapon and cursed him. Why would the Lord not protect him at that time? The Lord did protect him, but in a different way. By manifesting as a Purana Kathamodita, as the Srimad Bhagavatam. So anyway, the point over there is that Krishna was preparing Arjuna for taking decisions, even in his absence. And as far as the specific of why did Krishna allow that to happen? See, in many ways, it's like life is complicated and we can't predict what the other person will do. So Ashwatthama, what he had done was horrendous, but it was extremely out of character for him to do something like this. He had not been an evil person, and that's why, based on the situation, the Pandavas, Arjuna made a decision. But then Ashwatthama continued. He tried to attack again with the Brahmashya at Arjuna. So then at that time Krishna said, this is enough. And then at that time what happened was, he has to be punished. So basically he first killed the Pandavas, then he tried to attack, he was running away, then the Pandavas apprehended him. And then he shot the Brahmastra which Arjuna countered. And after that, he again used the weapon against to try to kill Uttara's womb. And then after that, enough is enough, then he was punished after that. So the idea is that sometimes people need to be given chances. But when they're given chances, sometimes they accept, they use the chances to become better. Sometimes they don't. So Ashwatthama was cursed. Now the thing is, in our tradition, nothing is eternal except loving service to Krishna. So while Ashwatthama has to suffer for a long time, he's basically sent into the wilderness. Killing among all crimes, killing children, especially small, harmless children. That is a horrendous thing to do. So that's why he's so that he cannot be in human society at all. He has to wander alone in the wilderness for a long, long time. But he still has a character that is not evil. Although he does evil things. So then eventually he said to be redeemed. It said that in a future Kalpa he will become Vyasadeva. And many Karmakanda rituals he's invoked as one of the great beings, Om Ashwatthama and Namaha. There are various characters, Namaha we say that. So he still considered that he did a terrible thing and he suffered the consequence. So it's like somebody did a crime, they go to jail, they serve their time, and they come out, if they've done if they paid their due, then they should not be permanently considered to be a criminal and stigmatized. So there is a redemption arc to his story.
Hare Krishna. Only one again, most controversial and interesting character, Karna. He took training, he went to training to Drona. He wanted to be a Kshatriya, powerful person. He went to Drona. Drona rejected him. Why he rejected him is one question. The second, he goes to Parshurama after that. In Swayam Avatar of Lord Vishnu. And Parshurama curses him later that you lied to me. I mean, how can anyone lie to Parshurama? Parshurama already knows he has a Kshatriya, built or a Kshatriya qualities. How do we understand this? That and third part of it. So one is why did Drona reject? Second, how did Parshurama accept? And third is after getting trained from somebody like Parshurama, you'll end up doing such horrible things in the Tirtha Sabha and killing, going and killing Abhimanyu in such a situation. How do we understand this?
Yeah. So, multiple things. See, I don't think the Mahabharata portrays Drona as an ideal character. He has his flaws, which might said to be a Vaishnava, although he, because of his power, gets misdirected. So, now, it seems that Drona goes along with the social custom of his times, that he will educate Kshatriyas. See that every situation will have, every institution will have some cutoff criteria. That this is the criteria by which we select. Now, is that criteria ideal? Say if somebody wants to get to IIT, they have to get this much percentile marks, or this way get this much score. Now, is that an ideal criteria? Somebody will not get very good marks, but they may have very good analytical ability. They may have a lot of interest in science. So, any criteria that we use, there will always be some problem with it. So, in America, there was this propaganda. The whole concept of IQ is a racist concept. That certain races do well in IQ and certain races don't do well in IQ. Therefore, rather than considering the fact that IQ is one attribute, it could be possible that some people in some places are more gifted in that area. Some people may not be that gifted in that area. So, because there seems to be some difference in IQ levels, and in different races, so the idea became that the whole idea of IQ itself is a racist idea, and therefore we should not have any IQ testing. But you have to have some criteria. If you can come up with a better criteria, that is good. So it seems that overall, the criteria that Drona used for deciding whom to admit was that they should belong to Kshatriya caste. Now, was that an ideal criteria? No. But that was the criteria he used. So that's why Drona's, like I mentioned in one of the classes, that in the scriptures, there are some things which are given which are descriptive and some are prescriptive. So it is not like Drona's glory in one sense is that he produced students like Pandavas. But that does not mean that Drona himself, in every way, is an ideal teacher. So now, with respect to Parshuram, how can he lie to Parshuram? How can Parshuram be deceived? Well, even when the avatars come to this world, the avatars, they don't exhibit all their omnipotence at that time. It's like, when Maricha came in the form of a deer, how could Ram not see that it was Maricha? Is it? Well, it's a Leela over there. So for the pursuance of a Leela, sometimes the Lord who is infinite manifests finite cognition. Although he knows everything, in that particular context, he acts as if he doesn't know certain things. That's how the Leela is portrayed. So, and as far as Parshuram's qualities, coming to Karna, overall, at that time there are different kinds of gurus. Although we use the word, the Pandavas' guru was Drona, there is no, as far as what I have seen, there is no description that he gave Shastric knowledge to the Pandavas. He was more like a martial teacher. So certainly some values would have been taught, but is it that he was like giving scriptural knowledge by which the whole character was to be molded? There's not much description of that. So similarly, Parshuram, he gave knowledge, martial knowledge, how to fight, but I'm not sure that there was any knowledge specifically about molding the entire character. Certainly, that was supposed to be done as a part of the Gurukul, but in that particular Gurukul, whether that was done, that's not a description of that.
Hare Krishna.
So
Thank
it's
you.
like, even in the Gurukul also, to complete this point that, there were some, like there's Advaitic and Dvaitic. So now, in the Advaitic and Dvaitic Gurukuls, or sometimes the Dvaitic Gurukuls, somebody from Dvaita family might send their children to Advaita Gurukul. But then they will be clear that they're going there to learn Sanskrit, they're going there to learn Vyakaran, they're going there to learn Chanda, but they won't learn Advaita. So the Gurukul also had many different sections, and they may decide that these are not what we want to do. So it's not that the Gurukul would teach only a particular knowledge. There are many branches of knowledge that we taught. So Drona's Gurukul was more like something to teach Kshatriyas martial knowledge.
Thank you, Guruji. One question from audience part. We are just finishing in few minutes, just concluding. Yeah. So can somebody pass the mic to us? Yeah, okay, one question from Parth, one question from her, and one more children. Let's give opportunity for children to ask questions if they have any. Yeah? Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
My question is that during the military show, when Karna was showcasing his skills and he took the side of Duryodhana, Kunti was there and she was seeing all of this. So why did she disclose to Karna there and then that we are supposed to be on the side of the Pandavas? And why did she let that happen? To let Karna go to
That's a good question. I think two things. One was emotionally overwhelming. Just see that her son is alive. She faints eventually. She sees Krishna because she sees the Karna, she sees the Kundal, and she sees Kavach. This is my son. Now, specifically at this particular point, we could say she's just conscious of her reputation and is concerned, but that's not only that. It is that she knows there is like a power struggle. Duryodhana is trying to push aside her sons. And one of the arguments that Duryodhana uses is that actually, are the Pandavas actually Pandu's children? Because Pandu had been cursed that he could not have children. Now the sages had told in those times there was this ritual of Niyoga. Niyoga means that if for some reason the man cannot impregnate his wife, then there would be a particular set of rituals within which some other respectable man would be called, and then that man would impregnate the woman. But then after that they would not have any contact at all, and the children would be considered to be children of that particular family, that mother and that father, not the other person. So Vyasadeva, in one sense, is the father of Dhritarashtra. But that's not how Dhritarashtra is now referred to Vyasadeva as father. So in this particular case, because he is a great sage, he's still involved in their life. So Niyoga was a respected ritual. But because Pandu is not expected to have children because of the curse, so that was one of the accusations also Duryodhana tried to her. That are the Pandavas actually Pandu's children? So now, in that was there, when he was putting that accusation, and at that time Kunti said, I had a child before I married to Pandu also. Then that would have further compromised their right and their claim. So it is not just for her prestige, also for the concern of her children.
But like she could have disclosed only to Karna and not everyone else. That was my question.
Okay. She could have disclosed only to Karna. It's possible, but then, does she know anything about Karna at that time? What kind of person is he? Would he now, once you see that Karna becomes so close to Duryodhana, then Karna might tell it to Duryodhana, and then Duryodhana could use it as a weapon. So it's not a easy decision to make. So eventually, finally, when she's realized that they are going to fight to death, that time she said, "Forget my honor. I don't want my children to fight to death." That's why she went into. But by that time, Karna felt that he did not really accept it as an expression of her concern for him. He thought that it was only a calculation from her side to protect her sons. So it's these kind of situations are very difficult. Afterwards, we can say they could have done this, they could have done that. But there are cultural and psychological constraints in those situations, or what could be done.
Hare Krishna. You know, yeah, I have several more questions, but I think we'll call it day after Park's question. But one question I'm very tempted to ask is how did they communicate in the Kurukshetra with 18 Akshohinis with each other? There was no WhatsApp. The funny part, I don't know. Maybe they had artificial intelligence then already, which we are rediscovering now. Go ahead, Park.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, in the beginning of your lecture, you mentioned about different phases in one's spiritual life. Like one spiritual life is faster than the other.
One spiritual life is
There's different bases.
okay, basis.
But how can you elaborate on them? How's it determined whose pace is faster than the others? Is there like a factor which affects it? Or is it just like an inherent part of someone's spiritual journey?
Okay.
You understand the question? Okay.
Yeah. So why do some people say they seem to be more serious in their spiritual life? It's like you have to grow spiritually. This is the material world. This is the spiritual world. Some people
Battery.
discharged. You can give your mic to people.
How should I elaborate on?
So let me see if I can elaborate on it. So the idea is that what you're saying is that some people can just seem to grow very rapidly. Some people seem to take more time. Some people may seem to take much more time. Some people may take is that what you're saying? That different people grow at different paces in the spiritual life?
Is there like a factor? Is it just an inherent?
Okay, that's what. But that's the question. So why does this happen? That's the question. Isn't it?
Oops. I got it.
So yes, previous life does play a role. Krishna, not exactly karma, I would say. Previous life practice of spirituality. Purvabhyasena tenaiva riyate ya avashopi, Krishna says. Based on one's past practice, some people are very almost helplessly attracted toward some higher reality, toward Krishna. So if you read the book Journey Home, at one particular place, Radha Maharaj shares his experience and he says that he meets many gurus and he gets a lot of affection and kindness from them, but he feels that there's a restlessness in my heart. As if it's not I am taking the decision. Something is drawing me, something is pulling me. So some people have that calling for transcendence. There's like some people their feet are on the earth, but their eyes are fixed way up high in the sky. It's like they are already seeking something higher. So that's one factor. That it's from the previous life they already have some attraction in the building of that attraction. Another factor could be that they have gone through certain experiences in this life which have made them more ready for spirituality. That some people, broadly speaking, see, generally when people turn towards spirituality, if I am here, this world is here, and Krishna is here. Most of our eyes are fixed on the world. Now, we may look at Krishna basically for two reasons. One is that I am not good enough for the world. That means that there are so many problems in the world. I want to succeed, but I'm not talented enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good looking enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. So I am not good enough for the world. That's one reason why people may turn towards Krishna. The other is the world is not good enough for me. Now, what it is not in the egoistic sense that I am so great, but rather that whatever is there in this world, it's all temporary. There has to be something more to life. So the people who turn from the first level, that the I am not good enough for the world, they will turn toward Krishna, but they will turn back towards the world. Krishna, by your blessings, I will become good enough for the world. So for them to become serious in spiritual life will take much more time. That's why you can shut off with 4 categories of people. That there is a Tesham Jnani Nitya Yukta Ekam Bhakti Vishesha. So the Jnani is a person who has already understood that this world is not good enough for him. What the world offers with its promises is nothing really ultimately substantial. So those people, either from this life's experiences, they have come to that realization. Sometimes it could also be that Vishwanath Thakur in Madhurya Kadami says that there is Swabhaviki Shraddha. Swabhaviki is what comes from the previous life, or from previous lives, or previous this life. And the other is Balin Utpadita. Balin Utpadita means sometimes just by the powerful association of a saintly person, one's whole conception of life gets shaken, and one starts pursuing something higher. So both of those are possibilities. Okay.
Hare Krishna. So again, I know Krishna protects with time, and that is
Regarding your question about how do they communicate, well, I also thought about it. The 2 things are there. First is that while the war was quite brutal, it was also in one sense like a sports. So it was different soldiers were fighting with different soldiers, and while they were fighting with different weapons, there were a significant number of warriors were also fighting with arrows. See, Bhima also, most of the time he would fight with bow and arrow. On a few occasions he would take a mace and then the opponent will get terrorized. So if they are fighting with bows and arrows, they are at a certain distance from their opponents. And it seems that they would also withdraw or retreat or talk with each other. So it seems that is happening. There are some places where Bhishma seems to call out, like Dushasana is coming to Bhishma, and when Bhishma is being in the final series being charged, it is described specifically like he is speaking loudly. So, but when, say, for example, when Drona is using celestial weapons against ordinary soldiers, at that time, Krishna actually calls the Pandavas together. It's like they pause the fighting to have a conference. Like, what should we do in such a situation? So I think it is, the noise was there, but there are various factors by which they didn't have to have some supernatural means for communication. That is, that there's no indication that any supernatural factors were involved in the communication that day.
thank you. Thank you, sir. You even answered that question. Hare Krishna. Yeah. Simple question. Okay. That's yeah.
Won't take much.
Yeah. Question won't take much time.
Prabhuji, the language, what
Keep it close.
language what Krishna used with his parents or with his friends or during the war. I mean, I know Bhagavad Gita is in Sanskrit, but what are the languages what he used? Was there a different language in different contexts what he used? Language of communication.
So Sridhar Swami talks about this in his Bhagavatam commentary. He raises this question that when we describe scriptural conversations, is it that every single dialogue is exactly what happened? Say for example, the Ramayana is all described as a kavya. So is it that everybody at that time talked as in poetic form only? Was there no normal conversation? Now we could say, okay, maybe the Ayodhya Vasindhari culture, they talk in poetry. But then the Vanas also talk in poetry. The Rakshasas also talk in poetry. So the thing is that there is always the authorial voice, the author's voice that comes in. For example, Chaitanya Charan Prabhuji describes as Mahabharat went to, say, Varanasi, or he went to here nearby, went to Udupi. Now, Chaitanya Charan is describing the conversation in Bengali. But obviously, in Udupi, he's not talking Bengali. In Varanasi, he's not talking Bengali. So, if the conversation was in local, in Sanskrit probably. But then it's described in this book in Bengali. So, Sridhar Swami says that because Vyasdev is such an exalted personality, and it is he who has put this literature in written form. Therefore, he has been able to preserve the essence of what was spoken. And of course, the Bhagavad Gita is an exception within that. That means the whole Mahabharat may have been that it's normal conversation, but it is put in a poetic form by Vyasdev. Ramayana is normal conversation put in poetic form by Valmiki. But the Bhagavad Gita is already described as a Gita. So Arjuna asks particular set of questions, and Krishna describes in a poetic form. So the Bhagavad Gita is what Krishna spoke exactly.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Heartfelt thanks to Prabhuji for allowing this to happen. Prabhuji, this was tremendous. Words are least to explain